Today I want to talk about how to get a maximum recruitment in your bicep while doing bicep exercises because, if you're already working it, you might as well get as much out of it as possible. So what I want to do first is I want to address the bicep itself. It's a little known fact that the bicep actually has 3 functions. And most of the time, we don't really think about this. We think about the bicep being a really simple muscle that just bends the elbow, right? And that's how we typically train it. But because of the way that the bicep attaches in different areas, it does get some partial benefits to some other movements. One of these movements is supination at the elbow. So it actually helps turn the palm upwards. Because most of the bicep attachment is on the inside, it helps when it contracts to rotate and to supinate. We can take advantage of this while we're doing a bicep curl by thinking about getting a little more supination and getting a little bit more weight on the pinky side of the hand. So if we actually put more pressure on the pinky, we're going to be getting both benefits or both functions of the bicep there as we do the elbow bending, and we'll be doing the supination at the same time. A great exercise to take advantage of this is with band curls. So what I've got here is I've got a band set up, and instead of having the handles in the traditional D setting, what I've done was I've actually threaded it through a little bit, so it makes a little bit more of this straight up and down. And then I'm going to step on the band to anchor it, and then you'll see the attachment points are going to be on my pinky side. What that's doing is that's putting resistance on the inside of my palm. So the band is trying to rotate my palms downwards. They're trying to pronate my palms. What I'm going to do actively is I'm going to actively rotate my wrists so that they're supinated, and then I'm going to bring that up. So that is a really great exercise that you can do to kind of get 2 functions of the biceps at the same time and get a little bit better connection with the bicep. Now, a second part to the bicep that we want to talk about is our mental focus of what we're focusing on as the bicep contracts. This is a tip that I picked up from Raphael Norell, built for this strength in Kennewick, Washington. But what he always encourages people to do when they're doing a bicep exercise is to envision that they've got a peanut in their elbow, in the nook of the elbow, and that you're trying to, like a nutcracker, crack open that peanut. So essentially what I want you to think about is, instead of thinking about the weights that's in your hand, I want you to think about connecting the forearm with the belly of the bicep itself. So you're only thinking about this space instead of this entire space. So just focus on bringing these 2 areas together and squeezing them together as tightly as you can as you do your bicep curls. You're really trying to crack that peanut in that bicep curl. That's going to be really good. A lot of times, sometimes you might have the problem that your triceps feel like they're engaged a little bit while you're doing a bicep exercise. And that's because the focus is too, what we call distal, too far away. And what often happens is, as you're doing if you're focusing on the weight that's a far way away from your elbow, if you're focusing on the weight, it actually starts to encourage you to extend the arm. So you get a little bit of recruitment of the tricep while doing a bicep exercise, and that's actually going to hold you back a little bit. So what you want to do is really put the focus here in this small space and crack that peanut. Another tip that you can do to minimize the amount of focus on the distal or the tricep activity is to focus on your wrist. To bring that focus in closer to the body, if you bend the wrist as you do an exercise, it's actually going to assist with the bicep recruitment as well. And I'll demonstrate that here. Most of the time, because the weight is so far away from people, their wrist will bend back. And I know you can't get a great angle with this right now, but this is a really compromised position to curl from. And right now, my triceps are more engaged than they should be. So what I'm going to do is, instead of that limp wrist, I'm going to rotate that weight towards me. So I'm thinking about knuckles to biceps, and then I'm going to curl in. And then like we mentioned with the supination, I'm also putting a little more pressure on my pinky side than I am on my index finger. So you can see the weight shift as I do that. So I'm trying to pull my pinky in, my knuckles come to me, and then I'm curling, and that is a lot of activity on that bicep muscle right there. And then finally, I had hinted at this at the beginning, the bicep has 3 functions. We talked about bending the elbow, and we also talked about supinating the hand and rotating that forearm, but it also does a little bit of lifting the shoulder, lifting the arm. Because the long head of the bicep attaches in the shoulder, it actually can assist with lifting the arm. So with your just isometric exercises, if you're trying to engage the bicep a little bit more, and you're having some trouble really feeling like it's a maximum contraction, all you have to do is when you bring that arm up, if you bring that up, you should be able to feel a little bit tighter connection as the elbow rises up. Obviously, this isn't very functional for free weights. As you do that with a dumbbell, you'll actually get less bicep recruitment. But if you're using a cable or a band anchored out in front of you and you can bring the elbows up, that's going to help you get a little bit more recruitment on the exercises. This is one of the reasons why the preacher bench exercise is such a common curl variation and so widely touted by bodybuilders, because it starts to lift the shoulders up a little bit and it gets the long head of the bicep contracting a little bit more. So I know that was a lot of stuff to take away. So let me recap some of that real quick. The bicep has 3 functions. It bends the elbow, and when you contract the bicep, focus on just that elbow area. You want to crack that peanut in between the nook of the elbow. The bicep also supinates the palm, so you want to focus on putting a little bit more pressure pinky side versus index finger side. You also, to keep the focus more proximal and tighter to the elbow joint, focus on bending the wrist towards you rather than allowing it to be a limp wrist. And then finally, during isometrics, cables, or other exercises that aren't free weights necessarily, if you can get into a position where the arms are elevated slightly, that'll contract the long head of the bicep a little bit better and get a little bit more mental connection, mind-muscle connection there. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you thought this was great, share it with your friends so that they can get a little bit better activation of their biceps when they're going in their next workout.